Hey, it's Lynn Galadner, and this is the Make Meaning podcast. I'm founder of the Your People marketing and PR agency, and I lead the Make Meaning movement, a platform that helps purpose-driven visionaries and leaders do business with meaning. On this podcast, you'll hear stories of how people dare to take chances to live the life they want, with meaningful work and purposeful days. There are many ways to fill your life with meaning. Join us at makemeaning.org to learn more. Now, on to the show. Welcome back to the Make Meaning podcast. I'm Lynn Galadner, and today I'm interviewing Keisha Greaves. For some people, inspiration comes easily. For others, it takes a massive life change to see their unique purpose. Keisha Greaves was already doing remarkable things before she was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. She had big dreams, she was making great strides, and then her diagnosis inspired her to go even bigger. Today, Keisha is the founder of Girls Chronically Rock, a t-shirt line through which she aims to inspire and motivate others in the disability community. Keisha recalls her diagnosis and the quest it led her on by saying, "What does my future hold? What is going to happen to me? I knew it was time to put my dreams to use and create something where I can express my feelings and my journey through my clothing line." Keisha Greaves, welcome to the Make Meaning podcast.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so honored to speak with you. Your story is so inspiring, and I was doing my research and learning about all the different things you've done, the different media you've been in, and I'm like, wow, you are a rock star. I'm so impressed.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's start. I want to hear a little bit about your journey, and I know that you were born and raised in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I wonder if you could take me through your early years. I'd love to hear like what inspired you and what you thought you wanted to do when you grew up.
Sure. So, yes, I was born and raised in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And yes, I'm still here. I love it here. So, so pretty much growing up, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, kind of like own my own boss, and flexible hours. And I knew I wanted to go to school for fashion because I lived and breathed fashion. Growing up, I looked up to fashion designers such as Kimora Lee Simmons from Baby Fat.
Mm-hmm.
And then also Betsy Johnson. I love Betsy Johnson. So I love her like colorfulness, her tutus, and how she does like cartwheels at the end of every fashion show she does. She's just like hilarious, and I would love to do a collection with her. And I'm like, I can't believe she's like probably like 72, 73. She looks great. So yeah, hopefully, we can bring that energy out there to Betsy Johnson. Like, yeah, we definitely need to collaborate. But yeah, I knew I always wanted to be a fashion designer. So, I went to high school and everything, did fashion classes there. And then after that, I went to Framingham State University, where I got my bachelor's degree in fashion design and merchandising. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned, I just, wanted to go to school. And, I knew sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to go to New York. That's where the fashion is. But I always was also very chicken because I knew I was not going to leave my mom here. I'm like one of those, yes, I'm a mommy's girl, because I'm like, wait, what do I, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, my mom's doing my laundry and everything. I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to do that. Because even when I went to Framingham, I still came home like every weekend, because Framingham is like just about like maybe an hour away, depending on traffic. So, but yeah, I always knew, I wanted to be a fashion. I feel like I learned so much from going to Framingham State University. And then after that, about a year after I graduated in 2007, I took about a year off, of working in the retail field, working in Eldo's local boutique to kind of get, like that field of, because again, I'm thinking, I want to own my own business. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I want to go back to maybe graduate school, to get my master's in business, to kind of get the business side of things. I guess I might have learned some of that in Framingham, but I was like, maybe this time, at graduate school, this will solely focus on the business. Mm-hmm. So when I was actually in graduate school, that's when I started to get really weird symptoms in my body. Mm-hmm. I would just be walking and my leg would kind of like just give out on me, like kind of like a, like honestly, I don't know where I would just be walking and then boom, I would fall to the floor. Mm-hmm. And when I would fall to the floor, it was kind of like I couldn't get myself back up, kind of like a dead weight, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like, all right, I can't just like get up. It was kind of like once I fell, that was it. And then I needed like at least one or two people to assist me up. Mm. So that kept on happening very, recurring very often. And at the first, I was just brushing it off. I'm like, maybe no big deal. Maybe I just need to, get healthy, lose some weight, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then my mom and sister were like, I think maybe we need to go see orthopedic because we're thinking maybe it's something in the feet.
Sure.
So we go to Tufts Medical Hospital. and we go to see the orthopedic. So I always remember I walked in that day on the appointment, regular, sitting, laying on the examination room.
Mm-hmm.
Two doctors come in. They asked me to raise, my right leg, raise the left leg. And the legs kind of just would not go up as like, say, like a good extension, like how it should be pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they just both kind of looked at each other like, I think you need to see a neurologist. So I'm like, all right, still not thinking anything of it, la-di-da. So then I go see a neurologist and we kind of go like straight to it. She's just like, let's get the testings done. We did MRI, EKG, like blood work. We did a muscle biopsy, which was the most interesting because the muscle biopsy they took from out of my right leg to test it.
Wow.
So yeah, that was interesting, and I was not put to sleep for that.
Oh my gosh.
So yes, so from that muscle biopsy, that's when they determined I have muscular dystrophy.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean, what was that like to get that news? And then, like, how did you process that? And frankly, I'll be totally transparent. I don't know that much about muscular dystrophy, and I'm sure you didn't at the time, just
Nope.
how would we know? And so, like, how did that feel and how did you process that diagnosis?
Yeah, sure. It was totally a lot. I'm like, the day I got the phone call, she was like, we got your, results back and you have muscular dystrophy. And I'm like, first I'm thinking, maybe she, maybe called the wrong patient. Like, that's honestly what I was thinking. I'm like, well, maybe she might have, got the test results or something mixed up. I'm thinking she's going to just call me and say, I have muscular dystrophy. Cause I'm like, number one, what is muscular dystrophy? Same with you. I had no, and I'm still, honestly, I feel like I'm still learning each and every day to this day. So first thing I do is, like some of us, we go to Google. So I start Googling muscular dystrophy and all these things. It's saying, it affects people from childhood birth and it mostly affects young boys, like some people may not live past like their late 40s and there's no treatment, there's no cure. So imagine I'm reading all of that. I am now like in my early 20s. So, out there, living my best life as I should. And then, I'm just like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like muscular dystrophy, and nobody in my family seems to have it. Nobody, mom, dad, aunts, cousin, nobody. So I'm just like, they had to get this wrong, right? Like it only would make sense. So of course I was in total shock. So I kind of felt like I shut down where, I wasn't telling really many family and friends. The only way family knew was, my mom telling them, like her sisters, and, they communicated that with my cousins. But I totally shut down. I was in denial. That's a huge shock. You have muscular dystrophy. And every time I went to the doctors for like a follow-up, I was thinking as I walked in, she was going to say like, oh, Keisha, we got back the wrong test results. I got yours mixed up with somebody else. You don't have muscular dystrophy. So that's like where my mindset was.
It's interesting. The whole Google thing is like a rabbit hole. I mean, and if I have like a sniffle and I start to Google and my husband's like, what are you doing? I mean, I'm like, do you think I have a brain tumor? He's like, no, I really don't, and it's just every time that's where I go. And unfortunately you can find a story that's going to tell you do. It's like, it's horrible, but I mean, so it's just really scary. And so you were processing all this information and, you're so young with your whole life ahead of you and you're reading things that are telling you like it shouldn't happen to you, and you didn't know what the prognosis would be. And so, I mean, I'm sure there was like a whole process of dealing with that information, learning more, what has happened since then and how has that informed the changes you've made in your life and of course, inspiring you to start your own t-shirt line.
Sure. So, at that time I was in total denial. Like, I feel like I just sometimes came out of denial, like honestly, the other day. It took some time getting used to. And, all I'm keep reading is, it's going to progress. It's going to worsen. And, I just tried my best to just keep focused. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll exercise. So at that time, I did actually join Weight Watchers and I lost some weight, which was awesome. So I felt like, that made a difference on the body, but I knew that it was still there.
Sure.
So, I'm like, this is not going anywhere, apparently. So, I just like try to focus. And it was one day that my friend was like, Keisha, why don't you write a blog about your short story and share about what's going on? And I thought, well, why would I do that? Like I don't have muscular dystrophy. So, that's how much, my mindset was. It's like I was in total in denial. I mean, even going on job interviews, when I started walking with a cane, I would tell them I sprained my ankle or I was in a car accident. Instead of saying muscular dystrophy, because for me saying that out loud, it just seemed too real.
Yeah.
So that day when my friend was like, write a blog, I was like, no. And then I just like happened to like, I thought about it a little bit. Then I opened the laptop And then I just started writing and talking about all the symptoms and everything that I'm going through and my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And it took, honestly, that moment as I'm typing it and saying it out loud,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, I have muscular dystrophy.
Mm.
Like, it's crazy. It took that moment. It's like, never mind what the doctors were saying.
Yeah.
It was like, it took, for me to, like, when sometimes you just have that moment and you're like, whoa, I have muscular dystrophy. Look at that.
Yeah.
And so I just like posted it on Facebook and just took a chance. And I got such great positive feedback. I mean, and these were friends I would talk to on a regular basis, but they didn't even know. Because
Yeah.
looking at me at the time, I wasn't really walking with mobility aids, no wheelchair then. So they were like, oh my God, I had no idea you was going through that. And, they was totally, totally supportive, both friends and family. And, even outsiders that, was my friends on Facebook. And, that totally made me feel good. It kind of opened the door a little bit, not 100%, but, I'm just like, all right, this is what I have. And then I also thought, well, it's time to put my dreams to use. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and fashion design. So I'm like, why not maybe create something where I can inspire and empower others in the disability community?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought wanted to create a t-shirt line because I'm a huge t-shirt fanatic. I love wearing different t-shirts with like, inspirational quotes and different colorings, like graffiti art. I love it.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, why not create something and then I can kind of do different logos where I can express my feelings and what I'm going through during this time, this journey of living with muscular dystrophy through my line.
Yeah.
And so how I came up with the name is that I knew I wanted something with the word chronic in it for chronic illnesses,
Sure.
but I didn't know exactly how I wanted to incorporate that.
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly was lying in bed one night and then it just like came to me. It was like Girls Chronically Rock. And I was like, oh, I like that. And I'm like, I love the way it sounded. I love the way it flowed. And by the way, that's where most of my creative like ideas or sayings come. I notice when I'm sleeping at night.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it was just like, and then I just kind of ran with it. And then I just started selling off on Etsy at first. And then from there, I was like, it's time to build, a website and, look more professional, more clean, like my own domain and Girls Chronically Rock. And so that's when I reached out to my friend and he created my logo and my own website for me. Cause I even had a different logo when I first started on Etsy, but this logo is way better now. Like this logo, I feel like so much more proud. I'm like, I love it because I work with like a total different graphic designer. So I just honestly love the way, like I'm going. If you had asked me a few years ago, like, oh, do you see yourself starting a brand, sharing your story about muscular dystrophy or talking on podcast? I'll be like, no way, because I'll be like, what, could I talk about something I don't have? So that's how, much of a mindset I was. So sometimes when I look back, I'm like, wow. But I tell people, I'm like, I still have my days. This muscular dystrophy is here and it's here to stay until further notice. There's still no treatment, no cure. And it's like, all I can do is take it day by day and just hope for the best. But, focusing on my business, Girls Chronically Rock definitely keeps me inspired and motivated. And I just plan to do so much more with it. I want to create an adaptive and accessible clothing line for people with disabilities. So, because people don't understand, it takes us quite some time to get dressed on a regular basis. And that's even with caregiver help, just putting on a t-shirt, putting on pants. So having that accessible and adaptive where it's like the sleeves may have some magnetic snaps or like Velcro on the sleeves, like it totally makes a difference. Designers now like Tommy Hilfiger, Zappos now has adaptive for people with disabilities. And I'm so excited to see that. So I hope to create an adaptive clothing line under the Girls Chronically Rock umbrella.
Yeah, it's so important to build that awareness because I wouldn't have thought about that, but those magnetically clasping, buttons or sleeves or whatever, like that's brilliant. And of course that should be out there. And we all should know about that too, that this is a very real issue. And so, anything we can do to support efforts so that everybody has access and they can still be fashionable, it's super important. I mean, I can't wait to see what comes out of your brain into the world in the fashion industry,
I appreciate that.
It's interesting. Something you said earlier really struck me. And you said something about like, okay, it's time to start living my best life. And it's not that you weren't before, but hearing that diagnosis and knowing that you don't know the outcome. And the truth is, none of us really know the outcome. Like, I don't know how long I'm going to live. Nobody does. We sort of take for granted that we've got a long time. And I feel like what you were saying was like, well, you don't know because now you have this very real diagnosis and you read some things that indicated that maybe you don't, and God willing you do, but that is like such an important message for everybody, regardless of ability or diagnosis, that, what are we waiting for to live our best life,
Yeah.
I
It's true,
mean,
exactly.
yeah, it's so inspiring. So I know you speak a lot. You speak widely to educate people and inspire. And I know it feels to me like you're on a mission to let people know they're not alone and to show the possibilities. And so I just wonder what message is most important for you to put out into the world?
Sure. I would say now that I feel like I'm a part of this disability community, because as I tell people sometimes, it's like, I feel like I've lived kind of two lives. It's like here I was as a disabled body person. And yes, sometimes I do think like I grieve the person I once was, if that makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like in this total whole disability community, whereas, things like you said, like kind of took for granted. Where, for instance, going like to this place and getting parking in the handicap spot, where
Mm-hmm.
sometimes now I notice that is sometimes taken by somebody who does not even
Mm-hmm.
have a handicap sign, and just going to the door and not having like the handicap button. It's like
Mm-hmm.
so many things has opened my eyes where I was not thinking about that
Mm-hmm.
before. And then now for me, living with that, it's like now I have brought awareness to it about like with family and friends, because now they're out with me. They understand going out. I have to make sure a restaurant or a place is accessible. No
Mm-hmm.
stairs. Does it have an elevator? So I'm so glad now they know that, where, when we go out, they take the initiative to make sure it's accessible. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, not now, because during this pandemic, I have not gone anywhere. I'm totally scared.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say like with my message, I kind of just want to bring that awareness about the disability community. Like, yes, we're here. We want to be heard. So many different disability stigmas, like, oh, we may not get married, we don't date, we don't have kids. Like, yes, we do. There's so many people out there, I mean, in wheelchairs who had it from birth, and they're married, they have kids. So it's like, yes, we still have lives. We still like to go out and have fun parties. So it's like I try to, let people know, like, yes, we're still like human. We're still like, regular people. We
For
just may
sure.
need special accommodations, but we're here and we want to be heard. And I also want people to know that when this whole pandemic, when it does become better, it's like, don't forget people like us in the disability community, because for some of us, this is kind of our norm, where some of
Mm-hmm.
us have to wear masks even before this pandemic, going to doctor's appointments for our low immune system, and and things like that. And I'm someone who is considered at high risk for the COVID-19,
Mm-hmm.
because for my muscular dystrophy, it also does affect my heart and low respiratory issues. So
Mm-hmm.
I totally been staying inside, but I'm just trying to bring as much awareness just about, us as general. It's like, yes, we have fashion. Like, yes, here I am balancing, living with muscular dystrophy. I still have my days and not knowing what the body wants to do, if I can get out of bed or the back is aching, and but I'm here and I'm still just trying to strive and, build my business. And I appreciate all the messages I get like on Facebook and Instagram, like, oh, I love what you're doing with your brand. And, and I appreciate that, because I'm like, wow, people are listening and they get it. They get my message and the movement I'm trying to start. And, and I really appreciate that, because that keeps me going. So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to bring overall awareness to the disability community. And I like to express that through my line.
It's really interesting because, what you're saying is that before your diagnosis, you didn't notice all the things that were necessary for somebody to have access. You're so aware because it affects you. And it just opens up a whole web of like all the things that we don't notice because it's not our story. And that's so dangerous because we're talking about equity and access in so many different ways today, whether it's ability or it's race or it's ethnicity or religion. And unless it's your story, it's like people are not sensitized to it. And there's almost like an era of like an attitude of not caring in a way. And so I just wonder how we could be more sensitive to that and more aware of all of the elements that affect people around us, because we're all living this human condition. I mean, it doesn't matter what the
Yeah.
details are, but I just feel like there's got to be an answer. There's got to be a way that people who don't see it now could see it at some point. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
It's just crazy. We are living in
It
crazy
is.
times.
It is. I'm just like,
So, on this show, we talk about how people find meaning in their work and purpose in their lives. It's sort of been a passion of mine, a curiosity throughout my career as a writer and in marketing and PR. And so I wonder, those words, meaning and purpose, are kind of loaded. I wonder how you would describe your meaning and purpose.
I believe that, well, after I was diagnosed, of course, as I mentioned, when I was in total denial, not knowing what the future hold, what was going to happen, that is when I wrote my blog, and then I kind of processed everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, I'm a true believer in things happen for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said that even before the diagnosis. And so I'm just like, maybe, as they kind of say the saying, like, God doesn't put things on you that you can't handle.
Right.
And at first I never was like, oh, what does that mean? But now it's like, kind of like, when you get older, more wiser, you're like, now I get it. So it's like, now I feel like I was here to, to start the business and to share my story about living with muscular dystrophy. And I look back about like going on job interviews even then and like, not getting the job and thinking, I nailed it. And it's like, even the previous employer I worked for 2 years ago, where I felt discriminated towards my disability, working in the retail field.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like all of that, you kind of just take a moment and process. And you're like, all of that probably happened for a reason. Me going on the job interviews, not getting that because it's like there was another plan for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, and here it is. So it's like, I feel like, I was here to share my story, bring creative, work on t-shirts, inspire and empower others. And like I say, it's like, I feel like I'm turning my pain into empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Because it's like I said, if you had asked me this a few years ago, I'll be like, no way. So, this is why like I plan to do so much more things with Girls Chronically Rock, like work on subscription, like wellness boxes and, things like that. So I'm like, this is my purpose of, just trying to think of new creative ways. And as I mentioned, the adaptive clothing line. So, I guess I'm here to have a voice and to be heard and to bring the awareness to the disability community and to build my Girls Chronically Rock empire.
So I want to ask you, since you're our fashion expert here, and I work from home always, and I am a very casual person. So like I haven't owned a suit in a very long time, but I love following fashion, and I'm curious about a lot of it. And so I don't know if you saw, there was a New York Times article a while back about how like sweatpants are the thing this year and making sweats more fashionable. And it was fascinating. And I mean, I love my sweatpants, but I don't know that I'm going to go out in them. But I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about, how fashion, impacts us, how we understand ourselves through fashion. So could you talk a little bit about that to teach somebody like me who really doesn't know?
First, I'm going to look up that article. That is interesting. I feel like for me, definitely sweatpants. I feel like number one, those are so comfortable, especially right now during this pandemic. And you can totally wear them inside or outside the house. Because I feel like with that, like you can always dress it up. Like, of course, not with heels, but like, see me, I'm like kind of like a tutu sneaker type girl. So I'm not really like the heels. Like I could wear them, but obviously, when I'm in my wheelchair, not walking in them. But, so it's kind of like, I kind of feel like you can always, spice it up with like a nice cute graffiti shirt and maybe some sneakers and maybe like even a statement necklace, like a gold chain, if that makes sense. So that's like how I kind of vision that. But I would say like, yes, fashion changes all the time. But right now I'm seeing a lot of floral more than usual. And then of course, because of this pandemic, now everybody you see with face masks. There's so many face masks. I mean, people are now like these celebrities are wearing, masks to match with their dress when going out and all of that. And I find it so amazing because it's kind of like when you behind the mask, it's kind of like, I don't know. I look at it like, oh yeah, like I'm a secret person. You don't know me behind this mask. I don't know if that makes sense. So I kind of like it. I'm like, interesting. But I love it because then even with the inventory of t-shirts I had here, I'm like, why not create some masks? This is going to be something that we're going to have to use for, it seems like, quite some time. So it's interesting that things, totally change over time by season and just by, what's going on in the world. Fashion to me is all about being unique too and being different and just being you. Of course, like not looking crazy or anything, but just like, being just fun and being what you feel comfortable in. And then also just still spicing it up. I always love when I see like people like mix and matching stuff and, creating something like that. I'll be like, oh, wow, like, how did you do that? And I love when people like recycle clothes now, which I'm very into. Like I said, I made some masks out of my t-shirts and I plan to do so much more. I created some headbands too from some of my scraps of t-shirts. So, I think that's important too, where it's like some people may just throw away or give away a lot of stuff, but you never know what fabric or anything may come in handy. So I think of fashion just being you, your own unique self, and just be you, be free.
I love it. I love it. So, as we wind down, I do want to ask you to share, and we will put this in the show notes too, but how can people find you and your brand?
Sure. You can definitely find me on girlschronicallyrock.com. I am also on Instagram, girlschronically_rock, and also on Facebook, Keisha Greaves, and also Girls Chronically Rock has a business page. So definitely check me out. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from everybody.
Awesome. And they can mention that they heard you on the Make Meaning podcast, and then it's a win-win. So,
Yes.
so before we close, I always end my interviews by asking my guests to offer sort of a permission slip to our listeners. And it's usually advice that you would offer to people listening to this interview about, going in pursuit of their purpose. So what permission slips would you write for people today?
I would say, like, if you have an idea, if you have a vision or something you want to work on, my take is what I tell people, I say go for it.
Mhm.
Because, you never know, life is short. I mean, we all can see right now in this pandemic, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm just taking it day by day, but I would say go for it, because before you know it, your idea, your vision, whatever you want to create will be up and running. So you never know. And I would definitely take advantage of the resources that are out there too on Facebook, because I feel like that has definitely helped me along the way with being a part of different groups like Women Helping Women, Boston Business Women, and podcast groups, and so many different things where I felt like has kind of helped me with my business to this day. Because, you'll be surprised of so many people you connect. And I mean, look at me and you connected. So it's like,
Yes.
it's so interesting, and I love it because it's like that support that's out there. If you have any questions, and, especially like people like yourself allowing me to come on your podcast to share my story, it's like, take advantage of all of that and definitely reach out, post a question on that group page or on Instagram, because I feel like with the social media today, it's definitely way better than when I was, growing up. So, because when I was in
For sure.
college, I think Facebook just got created.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so social media now has definitely changed, but, I love it. And I think it's for the good, especially for us business owners, that we can, share our platform and put it out there. So that would be my advice for anybody.
Just do it. Just do it. That's awesome. I love it. Well, Keisha Greaves, I'm so grateful to you for sharing your story and your inspiration on the Make Meaning podcast. And I'm just really glad that we've connected. You're such a light, and I'll be watching you. Thank you so
Oh,
much for being here today.
thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Make Meaning podcast with Lynn Galadner. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like what you've heard here, join us over at makemeaning.org to discover how you can add more meaning to your life. And hey, if you like our conversations, please subscribe and share this episode with the meaningful people in your world.